Hello, I'm Duncan Warnock from Maztax Accountants. Today I'm going to show you a short scenario using Intuit QuickBooks Online. Let's begin. We're currently viewing the home screen, which is also called the dashboard. What we need to do in this scenario is allocate an initial 10% deposit payment we've received from a client. So let's navigate to our bank account by clicking Banking. This particular business owner only has one bank account and they have received a 10% deposit from Johannesburg for $500. Now, if we were going to complete the job within the next week or two, or maybe 3 weeks, then often it's best just to not allocate the transaction, finish the job, invoice the client in full, and then allocate the part payment to that invoice. But for this scenario, we're assuming we're actually not going to finish the work maybe for another 2 or 3 months. So rather than leave it unallocated sitting there, we're going to recognise that a deposit has been paid and allocate it to a current liability account called deposits held. So let's do that now. Now, if the customer name has not been recorded, we would record it here. We will then find the current liability general ledger account. Under different accounting systems, the description may vary slightly, but something along the lines of customer deposit held should be sufficient. Let's select this. We're essentially recognising this initial deposit as a part payment for the work that will ultimately be collected in full. And we know that for this scenario, the service being provided, when invoiced, will have GST of 10%. So we're going to allocate 10% GST to this deposit by selecting GST sales. Okay, we'll now go to the description field. It already has the client name in there because the client has put their name in the bank transaction when they made the payment, but we do want to record an additional note to say that they've paid 10% deposit, and we want to recognise that the quote they have accepted was quote number 4001. Okay, so we've entered the relevant information. In some cases, some people may also want to use the class field or the location field to add extra information. In this case, we're not actively using these fields. Okay, we're ready to allocate the transaction. Let's click Add. And we find that that customer deposit has now been allocated. It is now not appearing under the For Review tab, and will now be recognised in QuickBooks by being displayed in the In QuickBooks tab. If we select the In QuickBooks tab, we can now see that the part payment has been allocated. Let's click on that now. And there it is. We can see some of the descriptions we entered earlier, the general ledger account, who it's been received from, and also the extra description to say 10% deposit has been paid, and it was for quote 4001. Alright, let's hop out of there now. Now let's assume that 2 or 3 months has gone by. We have actually completed the job in full for the customer. The customer has not paid any further payments since the initial deposit. However, we are anticipating they will pay the final remaining amount in the next few weeks. what we can do, we can go in, undo the initial allocation by clicking the undo button. That will move the transaction back to the For Review tab in Readiness for Allocation. We can see it here. And then, assuming that we've raised the customer invoice, we can then just do the usual process of allocating this $500 as a part payment to the invoice. Without going through this full process, the start of that would be selecting the transaction, clicking the Find Match Radio button, and then using the search criteria to find the relevant invoice, sales invoice that is, to allocate the part payment to. If the customer had paid the final amount owing as well, then we would want to allocate the initial deposit and also the final remaining balance to the invoice. For information on how to do that, see the customer payment allocation video, and that will show you how to do that. Alright, that's enough for this video. I hope you found that useful, and thanks for listening. Bye bye.